Good morning. Welcome into the virtual conference. I'm Dr. Jay Cofield. Glad to be here. I'm with the University of Montevallo. I teach TV production and I use OBS Studio a lot. That's what we're going to be going over today. So I'm very glad to be here. If you guys have any questions, please email me at cofieldj@montevallo.edu. It's the address you see on the screen right there. And what I'm going to be doing today is kind of spending some time going through 7 different things that hopefully will help you use OBS Studio and use it well. We're going to first off take a look at the interface, kind of an overview of what's going on. Then we'll go through some settings you'll need to know, how to set up a scene because that's very important, using the audio mixer, some of the different controls you'll need, how to use studio mode, which is a little bit more powerful, and then some important things to know that'll really help you get the most out of it. So OBS Studio is a free program, and that might, a lot of times you hear free and you get what you pay for, but in the case of OBS Studio, it's been around a while and has gone through a number of versions, and it's really powerful. It's also gotten a lot more stable. There are a couple of things you do need to know, namely you do need a pretty good computer to work with it. Not the world's most fastest, not a super honking, just super strong computer. For example, this computer I've got behind me is just, a basic desktop computer. Not a lot of memory, I think maybe 8 gig, just kind of, a decent computer. But it's running OBS Studio and it'll stream with no problem. My laptop I've got here, a little more powerful, it's got a nice graphics chip in it, and it works great. So as long as you have, not the lowest end computer, and even those will work, sort of, but as long as you've got a pretty decent computer, you can stream pretty well with it. So let's go ahead and talk about the OBS interface in general. So what you see here on the screen, this is what you'll see when you open it up. A couple of things you need to know about this is called the basic mode. You will see up here the output. This is what you will stream out. Scenes over here are where you set up different cameras, different microphones, and that's kind of really how OBS Studio works, are using scenes. I'll talk more about that in a second. Sources, this is where you actually set up like webcams and things. The audio mixer is very, very important. I'm going to be spending some more time specifically about that. And then over here, this is of course where all your controls to start streaming and start recording are. You'll see the start streaming. When you push this, it actually starts streaming, rather right there. And when you start recording, it will actually start recording. Under settings, this is where you go in and you set up where it streams to, where it records to. How does it stream, how does it record, things like that. Something real important that you do need to keep an eye on, and this kind of relates back to the strength of your computer and making sure everything is going good. This down here, this little area here where you see it says CPU, 30 FPS right here, record and live, this is your basic stats. This is where you can see the health of your stream that you're sending out. You always want to make sure that your CPU is not overloaded. You also want to make sure that you're pushing out the frame per second, which uses about 30 frames per second from your webcam source. Generally, OBS Studio will warn you if it thinks it's getting too overloaded, and you'll also see frames drop or frames skip. So as long as you're kind of keeping an eye on this, and as long as, like you can see right now, mine's at 13–14%, you're in good shape. This computer over here behind me is running at 4% just for that video. So I've got Chrome open and a couple other things that's adding into my load. So the biggest thing is just making sure that your computer is not overloading itself. So I did also want to kind of spend a little more time talking in this section about scenes versus sources. So scenes are where, again, as you can kind of see, you can set up basic looks. So this is my basic default scene that you start, and you'll see it says you don't have any sources, and it asks you to add them. So I went ahead and created a couple ahead of time. I've got a USB webcam source, which is this little guy that's sitting right here on my computer. Then I've also got my internal webcam, and I'll talk about why this isn't full screen in just a couple of minutes in the setup section. This is my internal laptop webcam. I have a Blackmagic device called an ATEM Mini Pro. Blackmagic makes a lot of video converters that convert any, like a camera, any video camera or studio system or whatever like that. It'll convert it into something, a USB source that your computer can see and that OBS can see as well. Very powerful. This computer behind me is using an older Blackmagic web presenter, and the ATEM Mini Pro is also, and the ATEM Mini are also very, very good choices for that because they work pretty well. and they're fairly inexpensive. So this isn't a plug for the Blackmagic devices, but they're very popular, and they work really well. They do what they say they're going to do, all for under $600 a piece. And I've also got an NDI source set up. NDI stands for Network Device Interface. It's a new tech product, software plugin that allows you to take various video sources or anything like that and run them across the network. So this is actually the output from one of my studio system devices here at Montevallo and Strong Hall. So those are scenes. Again, you can see I've got different scenes set up. Inside the scenes, you have to set up sources, because scenes are just collections of sources, what you see in here. And you can have sources that are images, that are slideshows, that are media, files playing back video clips, whatever you need to have. You can even have browser windows, and I'll go over those more in a minute. But that's what you see in here in the output. You also have to set up audio sources as well. Sources live inside scenes. And it gets a little confusing. This is where you have to watch, especially if you're going from scene to scene, going from an internal web camera to maybe an external device like the Blackmagic thing or something like that. You do have to make sure that the audio source follows with it. If you duplicate a scene, you want to make sure that audio, as you'll see here right now, I've got on my USB webcam the audio input right there, and if I go to the ATEM, it's gone away. So it's just kind of a little hassle thing that you have to be aware of, to get the most out of it. So again, you want to make sure that when you have audio sources that they appear in each scene. And I'll explain this in just a second as we start going through how to set up scenes in just a couple of minutes in the next segment. So in fact, now's a great time for us to move on to a segment about settings.